4 years ago, America and the rest of the world saw its most intense spike in unemployment in recorded history. In today's news cycle, that is ancient history. But what isn't ignored is what has been left behind. There are now over 10 million people, mostly men in America, who are not working, not studying, not retired, and not institutionalized. They are just doing nothing.
Men are chilling at home and letting society rot. Today's video comes from the How Money Works channel. Their channel will be linked in the description so that you can go check them out and support them. Men are actively waking up and walking away from society. They are walking away from the workforce. Watch to the end of the video to fully understand the implications of men walking away from society and the workforce and how this will affect both society and women going forward. And now let's just go ahead and jump right into the video. Do note, we did touch on this video previously. We will be expanding on it further today.
COVID accelerated this trend, but it's been going on for decades. Since the 1960s, about 0.1% of American men have given up on work to never come back every single month. So why are so many people giving up so consistently? And more importantly, how are these people surviving without a job in this economy?
In October, Mississippi's labor force participation rate was nearly 54%, while the national rate was over 62%.
How many jobs on these two websites?
It's been over 1,000 combined.
They're not working and they're not looking for a job, and those are the folks who we have to get into the labor market.
Why aren't some Americans getting back to work? It's the million-dollar question.
There are a lot of reasons why someone might not participate in the labor force. They might have retired, they might be still studying for qualifications, there might be people who are too sick to work, stay-at-home spouses, members of the military who are clearly working but don't officially count as part of the labor force, and then of course, there are just really rich people who don't need to work to maintain their lifestyle. These groups have always existed, but there is a new group growing alongside them, which are people who have just given up. The fastest growing group of these labor force dropouts have been men between the ages of 25 and 55. Men in this age range would typically be in the prime of their careers, but more and more of them are not working at all. Now, some of this can simply be explained by the fact that more women have entered the workforce. In fact, up until 2008, women were entering the workforce almost as quickly as men were leaving it. Some men just took on domestic roles as stay-at-home husbands while their wives or partners focus on their careers instead. According to Pew Research, young women are now earning significantly more than young men in most major cities in America. Young women are also graduating college at higher rates than men. So it makes sense that a growing group of men are tossing aside typical gender roles and doing work that doesn't get counted as typical employment. If this were the whole story, there would be absolutely nothing wrong with this. But let's be honest. Having a stay-at-home parent, no matter what gender they are, is a luxury that most people simply cannot afford in the modern age, especially young people who are the fastest growing group of labor force dropouts. There is something more going on here. Nicholas Eberstadt is a political economist who published the book Men Without Work, which tracked the trend of working-age men simply giving up on work and largely removing themselves from society in the process. His book, which was first published in 2016, lines up perfectly with a 2022 study on the issue conducted by the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, which found that men without a college degree in particular were dropping out of work because their earnings power was significantly lower than their peers who did have a 4-year degree. That's not unusual, because college-educated people should expect to earn more than non-college-educated workers on average. But the finding found that the gap between the two groups had widened significantly, especially amongst college-educated versus non-college-educated men. Now, this was particularly surprising to the researchers because it would actually make more sense that higher income workers would drop out of the labor force because if they are earning a lot of money, they have a better chance of marrying a higher earning spouse or just saving up more money for an early retirement.
Now, something I want to share with you guys, the reality is that men are simply a scapegoat for society when it comes to a slowing labor market, and they'll use terms like a mismatch of skills. Guys, you have to remember that I've said this already. Women operate as agents of the state. So they will spout the same rhetoric that the state spouts on behalf of the state to do the state's bidding, and as a result, they will be rewarded for this. They will be rewarded for sowing division. They will be rewarded for discouraging men. They are rewarded for reallocating wealth and resources from men. That's how they are rewarded. That's how they survive. That's how the SIB survives, all right? But now take this into consideration. Every time something happens in society, they blame men. Oh, the economy is slowing. It's because of men. Oh, the labor market is not, there's not enough men in the workforce. And as a result of not enough men in the workforce, there's not enough, these companies aren't able to make as much money as they would be making. And as a result of that, we're all suffering because of the men. Men are a scapegoat, guys. Think about this very carefully. They try to say that men have a responsibility to society, but increasingly men have zero authority within society. Women have special privileges, men have special punishments. If you live in a society where you have no authority, but immense amounts of responsibility, you are nothing more than a slave. And then you are told you are lucky, you are born with a golden spoon in your mouth, so you are being gaslit. You're being shamed into slavery. Guys, think about the society we live in. You are shamed into slavery. You are hated for your existence, but society cannot exist without you. If you want to know the people who are controlling you, look towards the ones that you cannot criticize. Look towards the ones that are calling you disparaging things, that are telling you that you are privileged, the ones who are benefiting most from your labor. Just follow the money. That's all you have to do is follow the money, and you will know who's doing this.
There are 8.2 million job openings in America right now, and around 7 million people actively looking for a job. There are also millions of Americans who have simply given up on even trying to look for a job. But still, companies are complaining that they can't get the people they need. There is one reason that has been used time and time again to explain all of this.
A range of companies are looking at how to close the skills gap.
Just a skill gap.
Due to a skills gap.
A skills gap.
Yep, the skills gap. There are people looking for work and jobs on offer, but the skills of those people and the requirements of the jobs just don't line up. It's a simple, elegant explanation to a major problem, but it's also almost entirely made up.
20-year-old Jesus Villegas is in the second year of his training. He's building a career in advanced construction technology.
Today's incomes gap is largely a skills gap.
87% of Americans said that they are going to need to get skills and new training throughout their work life. It's really remarkable.
The skills gap, also known as the skill shortage, or just good old structural unemployment, is a convenient excuse for a lot of major issues in today's job market that are often swept under the rug by businesses, politicians, and even economic statistics. If a hospital is hiring a doctor, but the only person in town looking for a job has a degree in computer science, then obviously that role is not going to be filled regardless of how much time and effort the applicant has put into their education. The argument that you would have seen is that this same problem is playing out everywhere across the world, which is why even if companies claim to be desperate to hire people, you might struggle to find a job. The whole argument conveniently shifts the blame of any labor market problems onto the workers because they're the ones that haven't trained the right skills or developed the right experience. The first problem with this idea, though, is how the problem of the skills gap quietly slips away during the good times. Research published by economists from Harvard, Northern University, and the Federal Reserve found a striking relationship between unemployment and the experience that employers look for in their candidates. The team collected data on over 36 million job postings over 3 years, and what they found was that the skills and experience required was almost directly proportional to the unemployment rate. In plain English, what this meant was that when there were lots of people looking for a job, all of a sudden the skills requirement for roles became a lot higher, and this is when people will start complaining about a skills gap. But when unemployment is lower and there aren't that many people applying for jobs, suddenly the skills gap isn't such a big problem and companies are happy to hire whoever they can get. Now, as long as they aren't discriminating based on protected classes, companies can basically hire whoever they want and ask for whatever skills they can. If unemployment is high and they can be greedy with their job requirements, that's just business. But the problem is, the myth of the skills gap is used to justify a lot of bad stuff. The first is simply lower wages. If companies post a position with high skill requirements and they don't get any applicants that meet their unreasonably high bar, they can go back to the best applicant with a lower salary and benefit offer than advertised, pointing out the gaps in their skills as a reason for the lower offer. This is just basic salary negotiation tactics. But the myth of the skills gap makes it easier for companies to get away with this. A report by MIT found that most jobs advertised in America asked for skills like programming that were actually not required to perform the job. They looked specifically at IT help desk technicians that deal with computers, so most companies ask for programming skills. The thing is, though, most IT help desk techs don't actually use programming for anything, but a lot of companies just assume that computers equal code and so make it a job requirement. The report actually found that programming was just as useful in manufacturing plants as it was in IT help desk work. But factory machine operators were far more likely to get on-the-job training on how to program their machines than IT workers who were just assumed to know how to code. But lower wages are far from the worst thing that the myth of the skills gap has been used to push for. It's also been an incredible tool for lobbying on migration policy, education funding, and workplace protections. These are worth looking at one by one, because you are probably going to start hearing a lot of familiar sound bites. So it's time to learn how money works to find out how the myth of the skills gap helps everyone but you. If there was actually a supply of good-paying jobs available to people that were going unfilled because of the skills gap, then the traditional market assumption would be that people would retrain to fill those roles to increase their income and job security. But that isn't happening because there are problems with every part of this assumption. The first problem is that a lot of the jobs we have a skills gap for here in America don't actually pay that well. According to a report by the Society of Resource Management, the hardest roles to fill currently include jobs like nursing, teaching, the trades, and social service work. Most jobs in these roles do not pay enough to support a comfortable life in a major city, especially for entry-level employees into the roles. The trades can be great, but apprentice tradesmen are not going to earn much until they are fully qualified, and even then, they need to work significant overtime or own their own business to make a comfortable salary in most parts of the country. Even still, they are going to be better off than teachers and nurses who not only need a college degree where they won't be paid anything, they also need on-the-job training before they are earning anything at all. That's on top of reports about extreme job stress, brutal work schedules, and the general lack of respect these roles receive. Putting your career on hold, spending tens of thousands of dollars on a college degree, and dealing with difficult patients or often dangerous patients or children is not that enticing to Americans who would consider a career switch because the income for these roles hasn't risen in line with the demand gap. There is not a skills shortage. There is just a shortage of people who want to do difficult jobs for bad pay. People in these roles who already have the skills to perform the job at a high level are leaving because it's just not worth making the sacrifices necessary when there are easier jobs that pay just as much or more. A counterexample to this trend was the rush to train computer science. The tech industry in the 2000s was expanding rapidly, and we didn't have enough coders to perform roles that actually needed programming skills. The allure of high-paying, respected jobs with a good work-life balance meant a lot of very smart people moved into that career path to fill the skills gap because there was a real reward for doing so. Now, there are actually too many qualified programmers, and as the tech industry has cooled down, hundreds of thousands of people have been laid off. Just 5 years ago, though, they would have been told that there isn't enough programmers, and companies are hiring whoever they can as fast as they can. So the assumption that empty jobs are just waiting to be filled and the only thing standing in the way is the skills gap can be a bit dangerous. But the final piece of the puzzle is how profitable fixing this myth can be. Politicians can win some easy political points by talking about retraining programs, and companies can push the responsibility of staff training onto their workers or those government programs. The market research firm Allied Market Research values the corporate training market at over $361 billion, with it projected to grow to over $800 billion by 2035.
The reality is that you end up having a lot of people who are training for jobs that do not actually exist. And you end up with people learning new skills just so they can go and make lower wages in positions where they once would be paid, the same amount to do less. So for example, it's not enough to simply, work in insurance anymore. You need to be able to use a wide variety of artificial intelligence tools in that field. And if you learn how to use AI, that's going to help you to get ahead in the industry. The reality is that you're not going to get paid more for using AI or knowing how to use AI. What they're just going to do is you're going to end up getting the same amount or even less, but you're still going to have those skill sets, because the employer is just looking to get as much out of you as possible. And they're continuing the myth of, there's all of these jobs or there's a tight labor market or whatever, so that they can they can keep on paying you less and make you desperate. In other words, they don't want to discourage people from looking for work when there is no work, but then at the same time, they want to make sure that they have all of the leverage so that they can underpay you. They're not going to give you $80,000 or $100,000 when they can just give you $56,000, even in an area where it costs $75,000 to live comfortably or $120,000 to live comfortably. In a place like New York, you cannot live in New York City comfortably on probably less than $120,000. And we're talking about the cost of rent, the cost of food, and the cost of all of these things, New York City. And there are many jobs in New York City, for example, that they're offering you like $40,000, $50,000 for like a full-time job, and it's like, with a college degree, 4-year degree, to perform a variety of important tasks, and it's like, what the living hell? That's how it is in California, and all of these guys, they're ripping you off. They're taking advantage of people right now. And then the thing is that Gen Zers are fucked because they don't even have the skill sets to do a lot of these jobs. They don't have the skill sets, the dedication. They don't, and they're not. It's ridiculous. It's understandable why a lot of them will opt out. My problem with Gen Z is not because they are opting out of society. It's not because they're saying, fuck this, I'm not going to work for shit wages and be taken advantage of. That's not my problem with Gen Z. My problem with Gen Z is how they behave in the labor force, how they interact with others, how they treat others, how narcissistic and disrespectful and just intolerable they are. If you don't like the job you've been given, you quit. You don't keep the job and then disappear like halfway through the day and then pop back up a couple days later. That's the patterns of Gen Z. They lay around sleeping, farting, drinking, playing video games. And then they just do it all again the next day. That's how the Zs are. They think that life is always going to be easy and it's supposed to be handed to them. To be very clear, Gen Z knew that the millennials got fucked going and getting these college degrees that don't lead anywhere. And they didn't learn anything. They learned absolutely nothing from what happened to the millennials. Instead, some of them are still running off and getting these useless degrees in gender studies and then screeching and hollering when they're not getting the kind of money that they want. They haven't learned that, hey, you're going to have to create your own opportunity. These people are insane. They're just like the baby boomers. The baby boomers are terrible. They're basically trying to scrape whatever is left in the pot. I mean, guys, all we have is a bunch of debt right now. And the boomers are like, yeah, well, just print, that doesn't matter. Print more money. We need hours. Guys, like, we're seeing the disgusting nature of society. The boomers have always been terrible, absolutely terrible. And they're determined to drag us to hell. Okay? We were basically born to be enslaved, to be, by society to enrich the lives of the boomers. But the thing is that so many of them lived so frivolously that's why half of them have no savings. It's so stupid when I see a boomer pop up in my comment section like, yeah, well, I'm doing really, really well. Okay, yeah, and how are your peers doing? I can't really knock you on that. They're not doing so good. Oh, yeah, but anyway, you have a good day, man. Fuck you! How the fuck do you come to my This is how horrible these people are. How the fuck do you come to my comments? Because this is how selfish these jackasses, these people can be. How the fuck do you come to my comments with an argument trying to say, well, you're doing really, really well, all right? So you don't know what I'm talking about. And all I have to say is, yeah, and how are your peers doing? How are the people in your age group doing that you know? Yeah, I can't argue with you on that one, man. They're not doing so good. Anyway, have a good day, man. Guys, it doesn't make any sense. Because they're so fucking focused on themselves and their own little worlds that they don't even give a shit about anyone else. If they just stop to think and ask themselves, well, Does the point I'm making outside of myself makes any sense whatsoever? Let's think about just everyone else around me, just in general. Oh yeah, I guess it doesn't. Oh well, I don't care. That's basically Gen Z. That's the story of Gen Z as well. That's why the Zoomers and the Boomers are the same fucking people.
The market research firm Allied Market Research values the corporate training market at over $361 billion, with it projected to grow to over $800 billion by 2035. That's a major industry just by itself, and it relies heavily on people believing that they are just one qualification away from landing a job that is just desperate to find the right worker. This industry is separate from traditional colleges and trade schools, but you already know what a mess that whole thing is. The skills gap has been a major lobbying tool by companies to push for this kind of training. Siemens, an industrial equipment manufacturer, paid for an article in The Atlantic talking directly to policymakers that the apprenticeships were the secret to closing the skills gap. Apprenticeships are actually great, but the reason that Siemens was paying to publish this article is that it would give them a new pool of skilled workers to pick from, not because they wanted to help out with labor force policies. And this is where you get to the most controversial part of the skills gap. It's used to justify immigration. Now this is obviously a heated topic that everybody has their own set of opinions on, but it is possible to advocate for more careful and deliberate immigration policies without going full, they took our jobs. The skills gap has been used to push for a lot of skilled migration, which has arguably gone too far in America, but it's been even more obvious in places like Canada, the UK, Australia, Germany, and New Zealand. The reason companies like this is because it lets them fill roles without putting upward pressure on salaries, and more people means more customers to sell products to. If the skills gap is front and center around these sensitive issues, it makes it easier for policy to be hand-waved through as an essential measure to keep the country functioning. Here in America, H-1B and EB-3 skilled working visas are the most common way to get in workers who fill skilled roles that can't be filled by an American. They come with a strict set of rules to make sure that American workers are not disadvantaged by new foreign hires. But if job requirements are kept unreasonably high to make an artificial skills gap, it becomes easier to hire workers from overseas who will be dependent on that company's sponsorship to stay in America.
You see, guys, one of the most important things to do right now is to understand that your society hates you, your country hates you, and as men, we're bamboozled. We have no real rights in Western society. There's some of you jokers who will act like, well, I don't care. I'm gonna keep on fighting. I'm gonna argue, and I'm gonna do this. Go get thrown in prison. Throw your life away protesting. Look at what happened to those January 6th people. All right, heading off to prison for a decade. Go ahead. Go be a fucking idiot. All right, go be a fucking idiot. Throw your life away. Because so many of you are fucking idiots. You don't seem to understand you are fighting for something that doesn't even exist. Western society, the American dream, it was always just that, a fucking dream. You had to be asleep to believe it. Okay? Everything that was here has been scraped clean. The boomers scraped the pot clean. Listen to me, they cleaned all the meat off the fucking bone and they sucked the marrow dry, and now they've come back for the bone and they want to grind that shit up and then blow it into the wind until there is nothing left. And of course they're going to gaslight you. They're never going. The people who did this will never admit to what they have done. And as soon as you show them the statistics and you show them the numbers, they'll deny them, or they'll just say, yeah, man, I'm not talking to you, and walk away. Because they don't have an argument. This is the reason why George Carlin said, do not argue with stupid people, because they will beat you with experience. Do never try to reason with an unreasonable person. Never try to reason with the person who just fucked you. With the person who is stealing from you. You think the person who is stealing from you is going to admit that they are stealing from you? They would rather call you the villain, which is what they do, before they ever take any accountability and responsibility for what they've done, which is the reason why it's so important as men that we walk away. The new American dream is not in America. The new American dream is to leave America. Unlock the secrets to living your best life abroad with the Passport Bros Masterclass. Ready to break free from the daily grind and live life on your terms? Join the Passport Bros Masterclass and discover the new American dream, leaving America to live where you're welcomed and valued. In this course, you'll learn how to build income and a lifestyle you desire from anywhere in the world, travel safely and avoid scams, benefit from my over 10 years of travel experience as an expat and passport bro, navigate the do's and don'ts of dating overseas, create multiple streams of income abroad. Don't miss out on this opportunity to transform your life. Click the link in the description of the video to learn more and sign up today. Society has been gaslighting men from the get-go. Men have been being taken advantage of for decades. We are the manipulated men within society. We are told that we are the problem, women are the solution, and we need to get in line. We are blamed for simply existing. We're punished for simply existing. The mental torture and turmoil that men and boys are placed through each and every single day is ridiculous and sickening. All right? There's nothing more hated than the male, than the man and boy in Western society. We are hated more than the cockroach.
Instead, they found the opposite. The group that earned less were more likely to drop out of work. And yes, before you ask, the study did account for the fact that people not working won't be making an income, so they would automatically be in the non-working low-income group. Now, since men are now overrepresented in non-college graduates, they were the largest group of people giving up on work. But even though it's tempting to make this an entirely gender-specific issue, and to be honest, it would make for a more engaging YouTube video, there are some bigger forces at play here. The reason that people with lower incomes were dropping out was simply because they had less to lose and more to gain. Most unskilled jobs cannot buy you a comfortable lifestyle basically anywhere in America anymore. And as more people tie their identity and social status to their work and income, it's become much harder to accept unglamorous service positions.
You see, I've told you guys plenty of times that you have a lot to gain sometimes just by walking away. Many of you do not know what is available to you. Don't forget that I talked about plenty of times my course, which teaches you how to buy nothing and thrive. The Buy Nothing and Thrive course is pretty damn interesting, guys, because a lot of people don't realize it may be more advantageous to begin cutting back and working less. You have to know what's available to you and how to play the game. So that's one thing for you guys to definitely go and check out, because so many of you guys don't know what's available. In today's challenging world, knowing how to thrive without spending a dime can make all the difference. That's why I created the Buy Nothing and Thrive course. This 12-lesson crash course teaches you how to secure cash, money, food, housing, healthcare, and more, all without spending a dime for any of it. Imagine having a trusted advisor showing you how to leverage available resources to stabilize your finances and grow your wealth. Join me and learn step-by-step strategies to maximize what's available to you and enhance your financial stability. Click the link in the description to sign up now for that course, guys. Men who tend to go to college end up with large amounts of student loan debt. The more time you spend in college, the more you're going to need to work and more time you're relatively going to need to spend in the workforce to get a return on that investment. Don't go to college if you want to, get wealthy. Don't say, okay, I want to be a doctor. I'm going to go to college and get a medical degree for money. While that works out for some people, it doesn't work out for a lot of people. If you want to be wealthy, you have to learn how to, get a trade and do things like start, rental properties, or building a business and a brand. There's so many things you can do online, guys. Don't forget, you can find the passive income blueprint on when you sign up for the Angry Guy Clubhouse. There's a link to the Angry Guy Clubhouse in the description, guys, because it's a waste of time. It's a total waste of time. When you go to college, when you take on all of this student loan debt, you now become a wage slave for the rest of your life, and you have someone breathing down your back for the rest of your life. Like, hey, bitch, give me my money. So what these people who never went to college, these people who don't have large amounts of debt, it makes more sense for a lot of them to just go and get disability or to work, work jobs here and there and live comfortable lives, because the average man doesn't need a lot to survive. The average man can live comfortably in a shoebox at the side of the road. It's women who need all of this additional stuff. I'm just being very honest with you. The average man doesn't need all that shit. Doesn't matter if he makes, you know, $20,000 a year or $20 million a year. I mean, check out this image. Steven Adams, his new apartment in Houston looks like this, despite him earning $12.6 million per year with the Houston Rockets. Guys, simplicity is luxury for a man. This is his home. This is how he's living, guys. All right? No women, no stress. Doesn't need anything extra. Guys, do you see how nice this is? Look how breathable that room is. Oh my gosh. That room is so clean. It's so breathable. He has the window right there. Nice window, privacy. Some bottles, something to drink. Nothing else. No garbage. No shit around there, guys. This guy will hop in bed on his phone and relax. His laptop, whatever, and just chill. All right? No fucking stress. Women will look at this and go, men, how can you live this way? Men will respond, why would I not want to live this way? This is so much peace. All right? I don't have shit to clean up. I don't have anything to worry about. I can live in peace. This is the reason why men can live in a cave and thrive in a cave, while women, on the other hand, will never be happy, guys. They will always have an emptiness inside of them that is driving them to continually consume and want more. It's a sad reality, but it's true. The future for a lot of women in society is one of increased poverty and destitution and extraordinary amounts of hardship. Men, on the other hand, are only going to continue to increase their net worth in the coming decade. Even as things get extremely hard, men will find a way to survive. Men will find a way to succeed because they have to if they want to survive. But again, the average man can live happily in a shoebox at the side of the road. People are no longer having children, and men are beginning to realize that as soon as they control their lust and desire for women, they realize just how boring most women actually are and why they would rather just remain single. Women, on the other hand, were not designed to live without a husband. It's so crazy because I have Sims saying, oh, no, it's not true, Angry. I know lots of women who are happy without men and they're succeeding and doing very well, and these are older women. You only know what you're seeing. And then when you find out that these women weren't doing so well, you'll come back and say, Angry, you're all right. I don't give a fuck. I don't want to hear Angry, you're all right. I don't want to hear you come back at all. All right? I don't want to see your fucking face around here. Some of you are now coming like and saying Angry Sama on your hands and feet, and what can I do? But you know, that's that. If a man comes back and he humbles himself and he says he was wrong, then I will. Then you know, and he says Angry Sama, then I'll listen. You know, I may give him another chance. Don't do it again, because of course some men are treacherous. All right, learn to speak only when you actually know what you're talking about, only when you are certain. Do not, ask questions, share your ideas, but don't talk about things like you know something when you don't. Because so many people, guys, I've said this plenty of times, it's sad, but it's true. All roads lead back to Uncle Angry. All roads lead back to Uncle Angry. What do you guys think regarding all of this? Do you agree that the future for a lot of women is going to be one of poverty and destitution as society becomes much more difficult to survive in? Let me know your thoughts and we'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, Men Walking Away. And cheers.